Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thanks everyone that has already joined. There's still a lot of people joining, so I'm going to give it a few more minutes before we are starting. So please hold. It's only a couple of more minutes. Thank you. Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining our session about cloud and your cloud strategy, specifically about how you can prevent rain falling on your cloud strategy. We're going to discuss pitfalls, and of course, we'll be showing you how Zerto can be that umbrella that prevents the rain from falling on your cloud strategy. My name is Gijsbert Jansen van Doorn. I'm the Director of Technical Marketing at Zerto. I've been at Zerto for about 5 years now. In the past, I've been doing a lot with infrastructure. I've been working at several cloud service providers and doing consultancy for cloud service providers. So cloud is really close to my heart. So today I'm going to take you through some of the pitfalls you can run into when adopting a cloud strategy. Now, why are we talking about cloud strategy and why are we trying to help our customers and our prospects with their cloud strategy. And the main reason is cloud first is now the norm. If we look at some market insight of a cloud shift, we see that 80% of all organizations out there have a cloud first strategy. And why are they using cloud services? One, to help reduce those IT costs. It's to help them drive business growth through like digital transformation and things like that. Operating at scale and really making sure they're more innovative compared to others in the market as well. And that's why people are really looking at cloud and adopting cloud right now. But there are a few things you have to take in consideration. One of them is security, and security is key when looking at cloud. And why? Because if you look at the challenges with cloud, and if you look at what the cloud actually is, it's still someone else's computer somewhere else in a data center. It's still hardware. It's still servers that need to be managed, that need to be updated. So all the security considerations you need to take on your on-premise environment or on-premises environment, you also have to take when looking at cloud. And why? Because once you start adopting cloud, once you start using cloud, you'll see that it's really easy to deploy new services, to deploy new instances, to deploy new VMs, which can cause sprawl. Besides that, it's so easy that anyone with, let's say, a company credit card can open up an account at any public cloud vendor and start deploying their own instances and start deploying services on top of that, really giving you a shadow IT environment. And what's really important for your IT environment, you need to manage security. You need to make sure that all best practices are applied, that no files or data is being shared outside of what is it under your control. And as soon as you start having those shadow IT environments in the cloud, you lose control of your security. Because sometimes it's just easier to open up all those firewall ports. And that's when you are really at risk. Now, it's not only the shadow IT, the VM sprawl, other people deploying VMs that are not secure. It's also the cloud breaches at the vendor level. Once you start adopting cloud and you start looking at cloud service providers or public cloud, you need to ensure that they deliver the security level that's up to your standards. And once you are doing that, you can look at regulations and certifications, things like ISO certifications, ISAE certifications. They really show you that they have a sound and they can prove that they actually have security measures in place to protect you from any harm outside. Now, as with any other environment, just like you have on-prem, you need to manage permissions, user access, and controls. The reason is you want to prevent shadow IT. You want to prevent just anyone from opening up firewall ports or deploying services or actually moving applications to the cloud. So that's still something you really have to take into account once you start using cloud and adopting cloud. Another thing, while this is sometimes the main reason why people are moving to cloud, is because they want to make more efficient use of resources. They want to reduce cost. But one thing, and even though cloud can be really suitable and is really a great platform to reduce cost, the pricing and billing can be really complex. There are many different components. You can pay for example, for sending data from one VM to the other. There's things like ingress costs. While most of those costs are actually free, going into the cloud is actually really cheap. The problem is, as soon as you want to get data out of the cloud, you start paying more. And that's because they, of course, want to avoid people moving out of their cloud. They want to stay, cloud vendors want them to stay in their cloud. So egress cost is definitely something you need to take into account, and you need really great insight into what is actually getting out of those cloud environments. And sometimes hidden expenses can really compromise the cost savings. And those hidden expenses can be actually tied to those complex cloud pricing and billing challenges that come with adopting things like public cloud. So knowing what you are sending into the cloud, knowing what kind of resources you're actually using in the cloud are really key to this. And that requires a lot of planning, but it requires a lot of insight into your environment as well. Knowing what is happening in your environment right now is really important to know what the cost will be as soon as you move those workloads to the cloud. Now, performance is always a key thing. And all cloud service providers and public clouds have different architectures. Some of them provide specific SLAs on performance. Some of them don't. Some of them have performance variations per region. It also depends on where you are. Will the region closest to you actually deliver the best performance? That's something you really need to test. And testing is something I will probably use a lot more in this session, because testing is the only way to know exactly what your experience will be in the cloud. Support SLAs. What kind of SLAs are they delivering? This is something you really need to investigate before going into the cloud. They have different support SLAs from a performance perspective, but also from an uptime perspective. And we all know everyone suffers from outages, whether it's you running your own data center or a cloud provider. No one is perfect, and no one will be able to deliver 100% uptime. So this is something you need to architect your environment for as well. Now, another thing that we want to make sure that you think about before adopting any type of cloud strategy is the governance. You need to have control of your data. And you need to know where your data lives, in what region, and where it's being used and who has access to it. And this is really key when adopting a cloud strategy. Things like GDPR and other regulations can really limit you where you can put your data and who can access it. But you need to make sure that you have insight on who is exactly doing it. Besides that, and we talked about shadow IT before, inefficient and unsanctioned use of cloud resources can be really dangerous from a governance perspective, because you need to make sure that whoever deploys services, sends data to the cloud, first of all, is sanctioned to use it, but also can only use the regions that are approved by you. Now, as soon as you are in a cloud and you are using the cloud, many things can happen. One of them, let's say the EU all of a sudden determines that a certain country is not on the approved list anymore. That means you need to move your data to a different provider. So you need to avoid platform lock-in or cloud locking at any case. So really making sure that as soon as you are looking at adopting a cloud, you also think about the access strategy. How do I get my data out of that specific platform or that specific cloud service provider? And this is key to be able to act as soon as you need to, whether it's moving data to a different data center or even if it's moving data to a different cloud service provider. You need to be able to have a strategy, and you need to be able to avoid that platform lock-in. So what are the key reasons for these pitfalls? One of them is that complex management of multiple cloud workloads. There's multiple platforms, there's multiple management environments, there's multiple UIs, and there's multiple ways to connect to it. And getting visibility across those platforms is really key. As you can see, another reason for that pitfall is the visibility into that performance and into future consumptions, things like planning for resource consumption. Also, utilizing data protection and migration tools with limited integration. You really need to look at the right tool that has the right integration into the cloud platform you need. Does it scale with the cloud? Does it allow you to make efficient use of things like object storage within one of those platforms? So really looking at how the tools you're using for data protection right now integrate with those platforms. Are they native or are they just bolted on top of it? Limited testing capabilities, and this is key. Whenever you want to figure out how something performs, how it runs, you need to test it. Having a platform or a tool that allows you to test within different cloud providers is key. And that's something that organizations really struggle with. How can they test it beforehand? Again, limited visibility. Visibility is key. Visibility into performance, visibility across different clouds or workloads. And that's really key of it, is a key thing when looking at cloud strategy and trying to avoid these pitfalls. And also difficulty to move out or to another public cloud or private cloud. Having the ability to move from, let's say, AWS to Azure could be key in your cloud strategy. Doing that is really hard. They have different APIs, they have different machine formats. Whether you're going from Azure to Hyper-V and Hyper-V to VMware, they all have different formats. They all have different ways of managing the platform. So making sure that you have a tool that's or a platform that helps you move between those different workloads and between those different clouds is key. And right now it's really difficult to do. There's multiple tools, there's multiple software out there that allows you to do just one thing. But once you are adopting a multi-cloud or hybrid cloud strategy, there's not one thing you want to take into account. And again, the getting out of a platform is just as important as moving in to one of those platforms. Now, what can we do to help you? How can we really unlock that value of using the cloud by using our Zerto IT Resilience platform? Let me quickly guide you through our vision. One, what are we trying to deliver? We're trying to deliver you a single platform that delivers continuous availability, data protection, mobility, workload mobility to, from, and between multiple clouds, whether that's private or public. So really giving you that single platform that allows you to, wherever you need to have your workload, give you the ability to replicate and mobilize applications between those different clouds you have available, whether that's a cloud service provider, whether that's a public cloud like AWS, Azure, or IBM Cloud, or it's on-prem. We allow you to mobilize and replicate workloads across all of those clouds. And that really gives you the flexibility to move in, move out, and change cloud service providers. So how does it work? I'm not going to only talk about what it is in theory. I'm going to show you a little bit about our architecture and about the technology behind it. So everything we do is based on continuous data protection. That's our foundation. And continuous data protection to us contains continuous data replication, making sure every change you generate is being replicated to the target real time, journal-based recovery. We want to make sure that you can't only recover to the last point in time, but we want to give you the ability to rewind workloads, rewind applications, rewind files to how they were seconds ago with seconds granularity as well. Now, one thing is key, and that's you want to protect and you want to migrate applications. And an application right now is not a single VM anymore. So we really give you application consistency grouping that allows you to move those workloads or protect those workloads. And of course, to satisfy those compliance needs, we have long-term data retention as well, allowing you to not only recover from seconds ago using our journal, but also from years ago using cost-efficient secondary storage. Let's look at journal-based recovery in a little bit more detail. Now, journal-based recovery allows you to really do granular recovery. Using replication, every single change is being replicated to a journal, and in that journal, we generate points in time. And those points in time are actually generated every 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds, we generate a point in time you can rewind to. So that means if you're hit by ransomware at 1 minute and 56 seconds after 5, you can actually rewind to 5 seconds before that recovering your file server, recovering a folder that's being encrypted, an entire application, or worst case scenario, an entire site. So we not only give you the granularity in points in time, we also give you the granularity in what you recover, whether it's a single file or an entire data center. And this is the strength of journal-based recovery. Now, we talked about application consistency grouping before, and it's all about how to recover applications. And using our journal, using continuous data replication, we're able to protect a single application as one entity. So that means every single time a checkpoint or a point in time is generated in the journal, we allow you to recover every single virtual machine that is part of that application group to that point in time. So let's compare that to backup. Backup starts at 11 p.m., ends at 4 a.m. First VM that you recover might have a timestamp of 11:15. The very last VM you need to recover might have a timestamp of 3:55. That's almost 5-hour time difference between all those components. So how can you guarantee a consistent recovery of that VM? You can't. Using application consistency grouping, using what we call virtual protection groups, you protect and recover multi-VM application stacks as one entity, as one whole. So that really gives you that consistent recovery. We talked about protection, we talked about resuming using the journal, but let's get into a little bit more detail. Now, I talked about how we support multiple clouds, how we support on-prem, how we support Azure, AWS, one of our 400 plus cloud service providers. But everything we do allows you to replicate and mobilize applications across all those platforms. You're not limited to go from VMware to VMware, but you can go from VMware to Azure, from Azure to AWS, and from AWS back to on-prem again. So we really deliver you a platform that has the workflows to give you that tool to deploy a multi-cloud strategy, or to deploy and start using a hybrid cloud strategy. So what does it look like in a little bit more technical detail when going into Azure, for example? As you can see, there's a production site, there's vCenter, there's hypervisor hosts, you have your local storage. Now, we support that as well. We install our software components right there, a ZVM, which is our Zerto Virtual Manager. We install virtual replication appliances, which is our scale-out architecture to make sure that we can replicate 15 VMs or 15,000 VMs, and that starts replicating to Azure. Now, in Azure, as you can imagine, we don't have as much visibility of the underlying hardware infrastructure. We don't know how many hosts there are. We don't know what is managing that hypervisor. What we do know is there's a cloud and there are multiple services available in that cloud. So what we've done is we actually have taken the VRA and the ZVM and put them in what we call a Zerto Cloud Appliance. And the Zerto Cloud Appliance actually doesn't store anything in disks or managed disks or storage accounts. What we use is page blobs and block blobs. So we're using the cost-efficient secondary storage or object storage or blob storage to store the actual data. There's no VMs. There's nothing running. You don't have to pay for compute until you hit that failover or you actually want to migrate an application to Microsoft Azure. As soon as you start doing that, we'll start deploying the VMs. We'll create them automatically. We have built-in automation and orchestration to make sure that they start in the right order, and we'll promote that data from the blob storage into managed disks. So really giving you the ability to use Azure as a DR site or move applications into Azure. Now, when looking at AWS, it's a little bit different. AWS has different technologies, different offerings. But again, we're really trying to do a deep integration into those workloads, into those public clouds. So instead of using page blobs as we do in Azure, we use AWS S3, their cost-efficient object storage, and we'll store all the data, the replica data, and the journal data we need to recover or migrate those VMs, and store them in that object, or as objects in those containers. Then as soon as you initiate a failover and as soon as you initiate a move operation or migration, we'll automatically create the VMs and we'll automatically spin up a scale out environment to import all that data from S3 into EBS storage. Again, deep integration, allowing us to efficiently use the public cloud. You can also choose one of our 400 plus cloud service providers and use them as a DR as a service provider, or maybe even migrate your workloads to them. We don't have a Zerto cloud appliance. What we use in these scenarios is what we call a Zerto cloud connector. And a Zerto cloud connector is basically your endpoint to talk to when you are using a cloud service provider. Again, it's all the same components. The Zerto Cloud Service Provider will manage the infrastructure and the Zerto components in the backend. The only thing you need to know is the IP address of the ZCC, and you need to have a connection to that ZCC to allow you to do DR or to move your workloads to a cloud service provider. Now, one of the use cases apologies, for doing DR to the cloud and moving things to the cloud. And one of the great use cases is McKesson. McKesson is a Fortune 500 company, and they've been using Zerto for a while now. And this is what they say: with Zerto is as easy as point, click, protect. I think some of them even use Zerto as a verb. Let's Zerto it. So what they've done is they switched from backup and the more traditional backup and DR tools to a continuous journal-based protection using Zerto to Azure and IBM Cloud. So basically eliminating all their on-premise data center. And they started with protecting 3,000 systems a year. And now by using Zerto, by automating using our API, they can now protect 750 systems per month. And they went from protecting 50% of their tier 1 applications to 100% protecting tier 1 applications. By delivering them one platform, one way of protecting their applications to the cloud really has given them the flexibility to start protecting everything with enterprise level SLAs because of our continuous data replication and continuous journal-based recovery. Another great example is JPeak in Vermont. They needed a solution that was way easier and that really helped them to test. It needed to be more cost effective. So they were looking at cloud-based DR with bidirectional replication. Of course, going in is great, but you need to get back as well. Besides that, they've suffered from a ransomware attack, and that resulted in a lot of downtime and data loss. So they were really looking for a solution that could help them with ransomware as well. And using a journal and giving you the ability to really minimize data loss and rewind to seconds ago is really powerful. Now, the impact of downtime is huge. And as you can see that during peak season, downtime can actually result in up to $900,000 of lost revenue per day. So the impact of downtime, the impact of data loss is huge. And getting a platform that delivers you RPOs of seconds and RTOs of minutes is key to avoid that and to avoid those actually unnecessary costs of downtime. So let's take a closer look about recovery time. So before they used Zerto, they used backup. They started with tape, moved to disk-based. Again, backup is a nightly process. You do it once every 24 hours. So the data loss is up to 24 hours. The problem is if you need to get it back, you need to recover it from secondary storage. It takes time, it's slower. So time to recover actually was about a day and a half, probably even more. Now, when they switched to Zerto, they really started using Zerto for their CDP, and the data loss went back from up to 24 hours to 3 to 5 seconds by using DR into Azure. The recovery time less than 3 hours. From 1.5 days, let's say 36 hours to 3 hours. So that's a huge impact. And as you can see, multiply that by the amount of dollars it costs for downtime. It's a pretty easy calculation to see the ROI is great on using a solution like Zerto. Now, we talked a lot about protection. We talked a lot about moving workloads or actually protecting workloads into the cloud. Now let's look at the move operation itself. So how do I migrate workloads into the cloud? Now we have built-in orchestration and automation. So really giving you the ability to move by just the press of a button. You can predefine exactly where and how applications need to start, in what networks they need to start, what kind of instance size they need, everything you need to be able to successfully move a workload or an application to the cloud can be predefined. So really giving you that ability to press the move button when you need to migrate. So what happens? The first step is we'll shut down every single virtual machine on the source site to make sure that they get a graceful shutdown, to make sure that we can guarantee consistent recovery into the target site. Then, as soon as everything is shut down, we'll start those VMs using our replica disk, using our journal on the target site. This can be done in minutes. Again, using boot order, using predefined network settings. We can even re-IP machines if needed as part of that automation process. And because we can operate at scale, because we have deep integration with those cloud service providers, you can do small migrations of a single application or move entire data centers into a different site, whether that's a public cloud or one of our cloud service providers. Now, let's look at the behind the scenes process of a migration. So what is actually happening? What do you need to set up, and what steps do you need to take? Now, the first thing you need to do is, of course, make sure that data is being replicated from your on-site to the cloud service provider or cloud. So the initial replication is basically a background task. You configure it per group. What we see customers do is actually define application groups and use those as a way of scheduling and planning migrations. So that's running in the background. Now, as soon as the first copy is done, the first full copy is done, our CDP, our continuous data replication, will then take over. Every single change that's being generated will automatically and in real time be replicated to that target site. That basically allows you to take back control of the migration timing. If I look at migrations and how I've done them, let's say 10 years ago, you'll take a copy, you'll do an initial copy, you test that copy, then you decide in what weekend you're going to do the migration. You'll do a delta copy or a sync process, and what do? You wait. And it always takes twice as long as you expected it to take. There's a lot of waiting involved, which allows you to basically not have control over this migration process. Because we're doing continuous replication, everything's always up to date. It only lags a few seconds, so you can do the move whenever you want, and you know that it'll be there within a few minutes. Because when you actually initiate that move, the source PMs are automatically shut down. We insert a checkpoint in the journal, making sure every single change that might have happened during shutdown is also being synced. And then we'll actually start using the latest checkpoint and make sure that everything is starting in the right order using that latest checkpoint, meaning that you'll have zero data loss and you'll have a complete consistent situation on the target site as well. Now, I've been talking for about a minute or so about this process. That's about the same time the process actually takes. We don't need to move any large data sets. It's only those last final couple of writes that have happened on the source site. And because you predefined all the steps we need to take to perform that migration, we allow you to do it within minutes. Again, it's completely hardware agnostic across multiple hypervisors, across multiple clouds. Um, Plus, we give you the ability to test this. We've talked previously about how important it's to test. We allow you to test the migration before you actually do it without any impact to A, the production side, or B, the replication. So you don't have to break replication, test it, and then wait for the sync to happen again. No, continuous replication will continue. So it really gives you peace of mind in this migration process. We talked about visualization before, how important it is to have insight into what's happening in your environment. Now, once you see what's happening, you can optimize and forecast using that data. Now, in Zerto, we have a really important component which is called Zerto Analytics. And everything you see and everything you can do in Zerto is all being done through one really easy to use and simple interface, one user experience. So what happens is we have what we call Zerto Analytics, and Zerto Analytics is giving you or gives you the ability to analyze what happened in the past, generate SLA reports, look at the amount of changes or throughput or bandwidth you've been consuming. We have dashboards that show you the real-time status. You can access those dashboards just simply from your browser or one of your mobile devices, whether it's a tablet or a phone. Simply look at what is my environment doing right now? Am I achieving those SLAs? Am I protected? Where is my data going? But what we've added recently, actually this year, is the ability to plan for the future. Using the data, using the historical data, we can now apply that to anything you'd like to do in the future. Maybe you want to protect more VMs. Maybe you want to start using in the cloud. We give you the ability to see exactly what kind of resources you need from a compute and storage perspective, giving you the ability to plan and make sure that there are no surprises when you get that cloud bill at the end of the day. We give you live performance reporting, giving you insight into what kind of RPO you're achieving right now, what kind of throughput or IO changes you're seeing. So what you can do is really easily spot anomalies, see trends in your environment. Maybe it's going up. Maybe you need to use more compute as well. And you can really zoom into specific points in time of the day to troubleshoot, to see what's happening in my environment. Maybe a certain process is disturbing other processes, and because you have that great detail and insight, you can really go into that and use different metrics to make sure that you drill down to what you actually need to know to find a solution for that problem you're seeing. Talking about RPO, we have an RPO breach table showing you exactly when you didn't meet the RPO that you set, the SLA that you've set. And using all the other analytics, you can actually drill down into what caused that RPO breach. By default, we keep 90 days of RPO. If you have the ZVR, the standard license, it's up to 30 days, but it's all included into the product. It's not a separate thing you need to install. It's all included into the platform. Now, I talked about the analytics resource planner before to really analyze and monitor your protected environment and use that data to forecast any future resource requirement, whether it's compute, storage, or networking. Things like, what do I need from a recovery disk perspective? How many data or how many capacity do I need to maintain 30 days of changes in the journal? And it doesn't only work for cloud, it also works for on-premise environments as well. So really giving you the ability to not only size for a cloud target, but also for the on-site target. Now, this is currently available for all our customers, but also prospects. Are you interested in using Zerto? Are you looking at making sure your DR is as efficient as possible, both from a cost perspective and from a protection perspective? You can start using the Zerto Resource Planner right now to see what you need and what are the costs that you're looking at once you want to deploy Azure, for example. So really giving you insight into your environment right now and giving you the ability to size accordingly. Now, of course, once you start supporting cloud environments, you need to continue the innovation. You need to continue the integration with those clouds, for example, Azure. And what we've done in our latest version, which is Zerto 7.5, we looked at some of the security concerns or security features that those clouds have available. One of the things that both Microsoft Azure and AWS have available is what we call cloud identity management. And we've integrated with that. For Azure, we started to support Azure Managed Identities. In AWS, we added support for the AWS Identity Access Management module. What that basically means is we're giving you as a customer, as a user, control about who has access to what. So really giving you the control to determine who and what Zerto can do. So that's really giving you that point, that security back, so all auditors know exactly, and you can audit on the different users that are able to do it. Now, of course, automation makes everything simpler, avoids human error, and speeds up a lot of processes. So let's look at the failover process right now, and I'll show you how simple it is because you predefined all the automation settings. So let's say I'm in a failover or disaster scenario, and I have an application I need to recover on a cloud site. So the first thing I do, and you see it in the bottom left, I need to click failover, the big red failover button. I then select the application I want to fail over. Right now, I'm going to fail over one application. Now, we talked about the journal before, and this is where I can select a different point in time. What if my application was corrupted an hour ago? I don't want to go back to how it was 5 seconds ago. I want to go back to how it was 1 hour and 5 seconds ago. By selecting the point in time you need, we'll make sure that the entire application is recovered to the exact same point in time. Now, as soon as you've selected that point in time, only thing that's left is start that actual failover. Using all the predefined settings, using all those network settings, re-IP settings, will automatically start that application in the right order with the right IP addresses. That's all the magic that happens at the back end. The only thing you need to do is start that failover button. In Zerto 7.5, we also released Azure Managed Disk support for intercloud and intercloud situations. So as of a few months ago, Azure moved to using managed disks as a default for their instances. By supporting managed disk, we really allow you to get those RPOs of seconds when moving into Azure and start using those managed disks. We can move workloads between different Azure regions if you are using managed disk for your workloads. We can move workloads that are running on managed disk to AWS for testing it in an AWS environment, or actually moving those workloads. Again, giving you that single platform, that single end user experience, not using any agents, and again, no performance impact. So really giving you that flexibility and really giving you the deep integration into those clouds to make sure that we can help you adopt those multi-cloud and hybrid cloud strategies. Now, another thing we've done, and this is actually, especially if you're into technology, a pretty cool story. So on our on-premises deployments, we can scale using our virtual application appliance because we know exactly how many hosts you have in your environment, how many hypervisor hosts are you running. In the cloud, we have no such visibility because it's the cloud. We don't know how many hosts, could be hundreds, could be thousands. But public cloud does give us the ability to use their services and their offerings. In Azure, we actually decided to use Azure VM skill sets to automatically deploy worker nodes when needed, and of course also scale down when they're not needed anymore, to help us deliver faster recovery and faster and better SLAs on replication. So this gives you RTOs in minutes, and this reduces your overhead because we're actually automatically scaling. You don't need to deploy more appliances. This is all done automatically. And this really increases the efficiency when using a cloud platform. Really scaling the cloud way. We're one of the first vendors to actually support this and actually make use of the Azure VM skill set, what it's meant for. This is really cool. This really gives us the ability to scale to many, many VMs, protecting them into Azure, but also mobilizing them in Azure. Now, what's really important is once you are protecting your environment, once you are maybe planning for a migration, is to get insights into, am I meeting my SLAs? Am I meeting what I promised? Am I meeting what I need to meet for compliance reasons? So every time Zerto does something with your VMs, whether it's a failover, a failover test, or a move operation, will automatically generate a report of exactly who did what, when did they do it, what did they use, to what site did they go, what VMs were involved, and a lot of detailed steps we've taken in the background, including execution times. So this really gives you insight into, one, what am I achieving from an RTO perspective, but also giving you the ability to prove your recoverability. And that's actually key. The only way you know that you can recover and you can meet your SLAs is by testing it. And that's what we're trying to make as easy as possible, giving you the ability to non-disruptively, without any impact, test recovery and migrations. So no surprises afterwards. What we also added, or actually certified, is the support for Azure VMware Solutions. So Azure VMware Solutions basically allows you to run VMware native workloads in Azure using the Azure portal, running it on bare metal hardware. So this allows you to go full cloud. Let's say deploy workloads in Azure VMware Solution, replicate it to another Azure VMware Solution environment, and have RPOs of seconds and RTOs of minutes. But you can also deploy it using on-prem environments. So replicating from on-prem into Azure VMware Solution. What's the benefit of this? You don't need to retrain people. They have a familiar environment. They have familiar performance. They have familiar tools. They know exactly what to do once they are running on VMware. So really giving you the flexibility and cost efficiency of cloud, but no need to retrain people because it's the same platform that you're used to from running on-prem. Now we're approaching the end of this webinar. So a quick summary of what I've been talking about for the past 45 minutes. Zerto, one platform to deliver you the multi-cloud hybrid cloud experience, making sure you're continuously available, offering you data protection across those different platforms, and of course, giving you the flexibility to mobilize and move your applications wherever you see fit or wherever your requirements are. We talked about DR as a service. So using a cloud service provider, one of the 400 plus cloud service providers to use as a DR target. Now, Gartner has a magic quadrant for DR as a service providers. And what I'd like to show is actually what is the Zerto penetration rate of those cloud service providers. And if you take a look at this, 90% of the providers mentioned on the Magic Quadrant are actually using Zerto to deliver that service. Forrester Wave is quite similar. Forrester has the Forrester Wave for disaster recovery as a service providers. 100% of those people mentioned, those organizations mentioned on the Forrester Wave are all using Zerto to implement and to deliver that enterprise class disaster recovery as a service offering to their end users. So really what we're delivering you is one platform, and it's a platform that delivers disaster recovery, helps you with those backup use cases, allows you to deploy a multi-cloud hybrid cloud strategy, helps you in those migration situations, all with built-in orchestration and built-in analytics. Again, one platform, no different UIs, it's all one user experience. Many use cases, whether it's cloud migration, recovery into cloud, help you with mergers and acquisitions by consolidating and migrating workloads into your own environment. You need to modernize your infrastructure. You want to move from servers and storage into a more hyperconverged environment. Zerto is the platform that allows you to do that in a controlled, risk-free way while protecting your environment from anything like ransomware attacks or outages and disruptions. So it's more than just a platform for DR that people know us from. We can help you with many, many other things as well. If you want to try it yourself, we have our hands-on labs available right now. Go to MyZerto or reach out to one of your account reps. Make sure that you get access. You can get started with Zerto and Azure just on demand. It's deployed within a few minutes. It's available anytime, anywhere from any computer that has a browser. There's no charge. There's nothing you need to download. You don't need any of your own infrastructure, and you can just test drive it yourself. See for yourself why people consider us the number one, the standard in disaster recovery, in migrations, and helping you with your cloud projects. So besides that, we have what we call a special offering for anyone that wants to use Zerto for migrations. If you want to migrate in or out of any of our supported public clouds with tremendous speed and a lot of ease, we're now offering a 10% discount of the price of migration licenses if you purchase them by December 31st. Again, we allow you to pick the cloud service provider or the cloud that you want. We can remove risk from any migration. We can protect you from ransomware and really help you meet those compliance and long-term retention requirements as well, simplifying your IT. So please take a note of this. It's actually a really good and cool deal for if you are looking to migrate to cloud in a fast and secure way. Now, before we end this session, I actually want to open it up for questions to see if I can answer any of the questions out there. Let's see exactly what the questions are. So I'm actually pulling up the questions. If you have any questions, please use the questions section in GoToWebinar and share the question, and I'll be able to see it and make sure that I answer it for you. Now, this is the number one question that we get on every session. Will we be sharing the webinar? Absolutely. You can get an on-demand version of the webinar. So if you missed the first part, if you want to rewatch it, if you want to share it with someone else, we'll have an on-demand version of this available as well. Now, let's take a look at the other questions we have. So one question is with regards to the journal. I talked about journal recovery, and the question is, so how much changes can I store in a journal? Are there any limits? So the journal by itself is limited, or actually you can configure the limit, but it's limited to 30 days. You can store up to 30 days of changes into the platform. So that means that anyone that any change that happened in those 30 days you can rewind to. Besides that, we can also offload those changes to secondary storage using a long-term retention feature. So 30 days in the journal, but if you want to store more for like compliance purposes, we can actually help you with that as well by using long-term retention and secondary storage repositories, as we call them. Now, another question I got was, how about Google Cloud Platform? Google Cloud Platform right now is not supported. We're looking into the use case. We're looking and we're talking to Google right now. One of the cool things is, I talked about Azure VMware solution. There'll be a Google Cloud VMware solution as well, giving you the ability to actually replicate your VMware workloads or actually run VMware workloads in Google Cloud. That's something we'll support as soon as that's released as well. The other question is, how about automatic failover? So can I initiate a failover automatically? Now, there's a reason right now in the product itself. So our workflows are initiated manually. There's a lot of things that are of importance during a failover and why you would or when you would initiate a failover. We are fully open. We have an API available, so we do allow you to use your own triggers and then use our API to automatically initiate a failover. That's absolutely something that you can support. How easy is it to install? That's a question I get a lot, and also number one feedback we get from our customers. It's really easy to install. It takes you up to a maximum of an hour to get it up and running on your environment. When you're using Azure, you can simply deploy it from the marketplace. We have a community AMI available in AWS, giving you the ability to really quickly start and implement Zerto and start replication and start protecting your environment. Let's see, any other questions we have? I talked about analytics, and the question is, what do I need to deploy Zerto Analytics? Zerto Analytics, so it's once again really core component of our platform, is delivered using a cloud service. So it's delivered through software as a service, basically. So there's nothing you need to install. The only thing you need to do is enable it in Zerto, send that statistical information to Zerto, and you'll be able to use Zerto Analytics. You'll be able to get insight into historical data, get insight into what's happening right now across all your different platforms, and to start using the Zerto Resource Planner. There's another question with regards to supporting physical infrastructure. Right now, Zerto is virtual only. So we support VMware, Hyper-V, and of course, a lot of the cloud providers out there that all run virtual workloads. We get a question a lot about physical infrastructure. One of my number one answers is, well, we might be the reason that you are now moving those workloads to our virtual environments. We are looking at how we can help you with any of the physical infrastructure you might have. I mean, if you look at what's still running physical, it's typically specific applications. Maybe integrating into those applications is it might be a next step for us, but that's all future right now. We're licensing questions. That's the interesting one. If you want to get a quote, if you need some pricing information, please reach out to one of your local account representatives. We're licensing per VM. So that means per protected VM. So there's no size, no amount of sites limitation there. It's just simply how many VMs are you replicating, and that's the main way we license. You can do OpEx or a CapEx model, but that's definitely something you need to reach out to your account rep for. Okay, I think we've hit most of the questions. And I think that's it for now. I'd like to thank everyone for attending, for joining, for the questions. Love those interactive sessions. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Have a look at www.zerto.com. Have a look at our hands-on labs if you want to experience it yourself. Have a great rest of your day. Please join us for any future webinars we have. And thanks again for your attention.